Hi, I'm going to read Chapter 1 in Who is Pelé? The Boy Who Loved Soccer. Edson Arantes do Nascimento was born on October 23rd, 1940, in the tiny village of Três Corações, Brazil. Even in 1940, there were many parts of the world that did not have electricity. Most of southeastern Brazil was one of those areas. In honor of their village finally getting electricity, Edson's parents named their first son after the American inventor Thomas Edison. Edson's father was named João Ramos, but went by the nickname Don Dinho. Most Brazilian men are known by a nickname. He was a soccer player for the town's team. Edson's mother was named Celeste. 2 years later, his mother had another son named Jair. Edson had not yet been nicknamed Pelé. Like all Brazilians, the Nascimento family spoke Portuguese. Brazil had been a colony of Portugal until 1822, when it gained its independence. In the 1700s and 1800s, millions of Africans had been brought to Brazil as slaves to work for the Portuguese. The Nascimento family had ancestors among those African people, so Edson had very dark skin. Don Dinho loved playing soccer and hoped that his sons would follow him. But playing professional soccer was not an easy life. In Brazil, at this time, every village and town had a dream, but only the very top players on the biggest teams earned the best salaries. The smaller teams, like the one in Três Corações and nearby towns, could not pay their players well, and that made life hard for Edson's family. They lived in a brick house that was nearly falling down in places, and Edson didn't own a pair of shoes until he was 7 years old. In 1943, Edson's sister was born. She was named Maria Lucia. When Edson was 4, Don Dinho was asked to play for a team in Bauru, a larger town to the south. He was also promised a second job for when he was not playing soccer. This was good news for the family. On the way to Bauru, Edson was excited to ride a train for the first time. He was thrilled to see the country of Brazil rush by the open window. He nearly fell out of one before being caught by Don Dinho. Life in Bauru was not easy. The family's house was also very crowded. Edson's grandmother and his Uncle George had also moved to Bauru so the family could stay together. I'm sure George was pronounced Jorge, possibly. The house had only a small backyard and it was often muddy. They had no air conditioning in the steamy summers, and they heated the house during the winters with a wood stove, which they also used for cooking. It was Edson's job to stack the wood that was delivered to the house each week. Don Dinho's team did not provide the second job it had promised him, and he had injured his knee, which meant he could not play all the time. Sometimes the family struggled just to have enough to eat. Their relatives tried to help them out. Even Edson had to help. He worked as a shoe shine boy at a railroad station. He also sometimes worked at the soccer stadium. When Don Dinho played, he loved watching his tall, strong father leap above the other team's players to knock the ball into the goal with his head. Soccer or football? It's a little segment outside of the story. Soccer or football? Around the world, the sport Don Dinho played was known as football. Every language has its own word for it. In Brazil, where the National League of Portuguese is Portuguese, the word for the sport is football. In Spanish, it was football. I cannot say the accents, I apologize. Germans called it Fußball. Italians use the word calico, while in Danish, it's fodbold. In the United States, the sport was once called association football, so that it would not be confused with the other game that Americans called football. They shorten association to get the word soccer. So that's where we get the word soccer. Back to the story. Every boy in Edson's neighborhood played soccer. He spent many hours playing with his friends. He was fast, and even though he was small for his age, he was one of the best. The boys were too poor to buy a ball, so they got an old sock, stuffed it tightly with rags, and tied it with a string. This lumpy ball was kicked all around the streets in the neighborhood. The goalpost might be a pair of old socks or shoes. There were no real fields and very few organized leagues for children. There's a picture of him playing with an old sock. Edson did have one advantage: his father. Don Dinho loved showing his boys all that he knew of the game he loved. They practiced dribbling and passing with the sock ball. He told them about the positions on the field and how to shoot the ball at the goal. He showed his sons how important it was to be able to play well with both feet and how to control the ball no matter how it came to you. Edson loved his time with his father. The more Edson played, the more he had dreams of being a pro player like Don Dinho. One day, he told his friends, "I'm going to be as good as my dad." About a year after they moved to Baru, Don Dinho finally got his second job. He worked at a government health clinic, sweeping floors and helping the staff. Edson sometimes helped his father at work. Don Dinho would use the time to tell Edson stories of his life in soccer. As Edson's dreams grew bigger, he grew even closer with his father. Now that the family had enough money, Edson could finally go to school. Poor families in Brazil needed to save money for school fees and supplies before their children could begin classes. His mother and his aunt sewed up his old shorts and made him a nice shirt. He got a box of colored pencils to use in school. But Edson, the boy who loved playing soccer, did not enjoy school. He did not like sitting still, and he did not like doing homework. He often sneaked out to go swimming or to play soccer with his friends. When he was in class, he talked too much. As a punishment, his teacher sometimes stuffed his cheeks with paper. Other times, she made him kneel on hard, dry beans. When Edson was about 9, the boys he played soccer with started calling him Pelé. Most nicknames in Brazil are based on a person's name, what they look like, or how they act. But no one really knows what Pelé means. "I've been back to Baru many times," Pelé wrote later, and have asked all my old friends from those days, but they don't have a clue how or when it started. That's him with the paper in his mouth. Can you imagine if teachers did that now? I don't think we'd have jobs. At first, he hated the nickname. He was even suspended from school for hitting a boy who called him Pelé. But he eventually grew to love the name that would soon make world famous.